I really think that we have competency moments and we have character moments. Competency moments are, I'm challenged intellectually. Right now, you and I are having a competency moment because we can go back and forth. We can talk about ideas. We can talk about dreams. A character moment is, did you take out the trash? Did you do the dishes? Did you wash your hands when no one else was in the bathroom? Who are you when no one is looking? The character moments are so important in our life, but we want to avoid them because, we don't feel like it challenges me, or I need to be inspired. Well, here's a newsflash. You're never going to be inspired to take out the trash unless there's too much trash. Then it's too late. So just do it when it needs to be done. That's why I love Zig Ziglar. He said, do what you have to do as soon as you can so you can do what you want to do for as long as you can.
That's right. That's
so
good.
In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the Real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Well, welcome to the show. This is The Root of All Success, as it said in the introduction there. I'm the Real Jason Duncan. Welcome to our show. Thank you for joining me. This show, as I've done for a long time now, I am interviewing super successful entrepreneurs about their journey to success. How did they become successful? What did they do? What were the keys to their success? And I have this theory that there are 5 specific keys that every entrepreneur has used to unlock success. And you, as an entrepreneur, can use those same keys to unlock success for your life. That's what this show is dedicated to doing. So today, just like every time we release an episode, we're talking with a super successful entrepreneur about how he or she did that. Typically speaking, we record these live and in person at the Standard in Nashville, but today I'm coming to you by Zoom at my home office in Gallatin, Tennessee, just north of Nashville. And if you're not watching these episodes on YouTube, you're really missing out. Thank you for wherever it is that you download and listen to this through whatever podcast player, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it happens to be. I appreciate you doing that. Please subscribe, leave a 5-star review. It really helps us get higher in the rankings so that more people can hear this and more entrepreneurs can get started on their journey to success and change the world. Today, as I said, we're doing this by Zoom. My guest is dialing in by Zoom from Colorado, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But this is kind of a 2-part podcast. So we're not really labeling which one's part 1, which one's part 2, but you're going to need to go listen to his podcast for the second half of this story. So we'll talk more about that when we get into the podcast with the guest. But first of all, let me talk about our episode sponsor for today. Our episode sponsor for today is the Final Percent Summit, which is coming up in Colorado in the Denver area, September 25th and 26th. In Colorado. It's called the Final Percent Summit 2021. Yours truly will be one of the keynote speakers. I will be there, as will our guest, which I'll introduce in just a moment. But our guest is actually the organizer of this event with his business, which we'll talk about later, in Denver, coming up September 25th and 26th. I want you to come to this summit. I want you to hear one of the amazing speakers about how you can improve your life as an entrepreneur and as a business leader. You're going to find out more about this by going to thefinalpercent.com. That's thefinalpercent.com, which is our guest's website for his coaching and speaking platform. Scroll down a little bit to upcoming events, and you're going to see this purple box in the middle that says the Final Percent Summit 2021. Click on the link and you can go there. Now, here's a little tip. We're going to get this aired, of course, as you're listening to it right now, before the summit. And if you want tickets, you want a discount ticket, all you got to do is reach out to me, the Real Jason Duncan, through my website, and I've got access to discounted tickets for you. So all you got to do is go to my website, go to the contact form, fill it out, and ask for a discount to the Final Percent Summit 2021. Again, that's coming up on September 25th and 26th. The Final Percent Summit 2021, helping you live your best life and to go the final percent. So thank you to the Final Percent. Thank you to Greg Kimble and his organization for sponsoring today's episode. So let's talk about Greg, because Greg is my guest for today. He's held many titles in his years on this planet. As a teenager, he got his start in the music industry as a singer-songwriter, and he went on to wear about every hat imaginable in that field: a producer, engineer, performer, educator, business owner. And I've heard the dude sing. He's legit. He often refers to himself as a perseverance expert, which we're going to talk about on the show today. And he has persevered through every obstacle in his life, including a divorce, ending up homeless, and he's rebuilt and restarted his life multiple times, which has made him stronger. One of the things I heard him say the first time we met, when I was emceeing an event in Tennessee that he was speaking at, he said, "The weight never gets lighter, you get stronger." And if anybody knows about that, it's Greg Kimble. Greg is the chairman of the board for KMG Life, which is a multimedia company and music production school widely known as KMG Academy. And he's the founder and CEO of The Final Percent, where he has developed a pretty successful name as a public speaker, motivational speaker, life coaching, that stems out of his desire to help others based on the knowledge that he's acquired as a leader and an entrepreneur in his life. And among his several life and business concepts, he's notorious for this thing called the Final Percent, which, as you recall, that's the sponsor for our episode today, which he uses as a yardstick to measure your personal and business growth at all times. So are you going the final percent? Like if you give 99%, but don't do that last percent, you're missing something. So in essence, Greg's philosophy for achieving what he calls the exponential part of life is that final percent, which can be found on all major streaming platforms through his podcast called The Final Percent Podcast, which I will be a guest on as the second part or first part of this two-part series. We're not really labeling one part one, the other one part two. But if you want to hear the other half of this story, on this one, I'm going to be interviewing Greg, and the next one, he's going to be interviewing me. We're going to talk about each other's stories, but it's kind of a two-parter. So go look up The Final Percent Podcast with Greg Kimble, who is my guest today, who's also the organizer of the Final Percent Summit in Denver, which we talked about at the onset. Both he and I will be speakers at that event, and we want you to come to that event. So please welcome me, or help me rather, welcome our guest for today, Greg Kimble. Thanks for being here, Greg.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I really, really do appreciate it.
Well, in the intro, we talked about I talked about your story and about kind of a little bit about your background and what you're doing with the Final Percent. Of course, you're the episode sponsor for this on this two-part series between my show and your show, the Final Percent Podcast. So why don't we start here? Why don't you kind of tell me, how did you get started as an entrepreneur? You're a young guy, you're very successful, you've got tons of businesses going under your brand. Like how did you get started as an entrepreneur?
Well, how I got started I think probably how a lot of people get started. You have this desire inside of you, you have this want, you have this need. Mine started probably when I was about 8. And I had this desire and I had this want and I had this need for the newest Batman toy. And I come from an incredibly poor family. And so I said, "Mom, I need this toy. I need to get this toy." And she goes, "We don't have the money for that." Because it was a pretty expensive. It was like this 3-foot Batman, or I don't even know how much 3 feet is, but it was basically the size of me at the time. And I think it was like $50. And my mom's like, "We don't have money for you to do this." So then I go, "Of course, you play the mommy daddy game." I go to my dad, and he says, "Okay, well, if you clean up all the leaves in the yard and you do all this stuff," he gives me just a laundry list of stuff, and didn't think I was actually going to do it or get it done. So I got it all done. And then he has the hard conversation with me. He's like, "Okay, number one, I didn't think you were going to do it. And number two, we don't have the money." And I was just, and it was a weird thing. I didn't throw a tantrum or anything. I was just like, what is this, like, don't have the money thing? This, like, what's the point of money if you don't have it? Like, I need to go get it. And so I had my bike, I'm riding around the neighborhood, and I get really thirsty. It's the middle of summer, and I go to a lemonade stand, and it was like, I think it was like 5 cents or 10 cents to get some lemonade from some kids at the corner. I'm playing throughout the day, bike riding with my friends, and all these kids, I think there's probably like 7 or 9 or some sort of amount of lemonade stands. And so I'd go by another person's, but this one was a quarter. And I was like, okay, well, here's a quarter. I want another lemonade. I'm thirsty. I've been riding my bike all day. And then I go to another one, and then this one's a nickel. And so then I had this like epiphany moment. I'm like, all of these people are selling the same product with different prices. How can I get in on this? And so then I went home. My mom's always been a really like big arts and crafts person. And so she had markers and poster board. And so I went back to all of the people and I said, here's what I propose. I think all of us, so that people don't realize that you're selling it for a quarter, you're selling it for a nickel, let's get all of our prices the same. So I basically unionized the neighborhood lemonade people. And then I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the signs. We're going to do this. And my brother's been an artist, so he helped me make these like really great signs for all of these people. I brought it and I called it G's Lemonade. Greg, like, really inventive, gave it to everybody. And I standardized everybody at 50 cents, which is, a lot back then, but it's just like, it's really hard to say no to a kid when you're driving by, especially if you're a parent. But the thing is I took everyone's prices up, so everyone's making more money, but I took a quarter. So I took 50% of all the profits. And that day I made $111 or $112, something like that. And I went and bought the Batman thing myself. And that's when I found out the power of entrepreneurship and resourcefulness, because when you want something, you have to be able to be innovative. You have to be willing to put the work in. You have to be willing to, take your life to the next level, think outside the box. And that's exactly what I did. And after I realized, like, okay, my dad, who works so hard for the family, my mom, who works so hard for the family, couldn't buy me a $50 toy. And then in one day, and obviously they have other bills, and I get that, it's not necessarily disposable income or something that they felt they needed to put money on. But it was at that time when I realized, okay, I'm 8 and I can go generate $100 in a day on my bike. And I didn't actually do any work. Like, wow, how did I get here? But in the process, and I think that's really good entrepreneurship, instead of exploiting people, everyone won in that thing, because now no one's undercutting each other. We have better signs. Everything looks more professional. And then the people who were making 5 cents before, now they're making 25 cents. And they just went up 500% in their profits. So everyone was super happy. And we did this for like the next, I don't know, 3 or 4 summers, until I decided to get out of the lemonade business,
So you were 8?
Yes.
Like that. Listen, I love the hustle, right? None of us could say anything other than, man, that's amazing hustle. But how at 8 did you manage to appropriately? Now I'm going to use the word manipulate, but I don't mean it in a negative connotation. Yeah. But how were you able to manipulate that situation so deftly? I mean, at 8 years old, how did you figure that out?
Because I wanted a Batman toy. Like, I don't know, like some way in my brain. And this might be because my dad owned a company called Scorpio Music when I was younger. And it sold musical instruments. He did, and we lived in Laramie, Wyoming. So he was like the music place to go. If you wanted a guitar, you'd go there. If you wanted a PA speaker, you would go there. If you wanted, any of this stuff, you would go there. And so he and I would install sound systems. I was always his like right-hand buddy, like, grab me that cable. Hey, go plug this in there. Go do this. And what I realized, if you look at any sound system, you usually have a microphone that you talk into. The sound goes through some sort of mixer, out of the mixer, through into an amplifier, out of an amplifier, into speakers. Now, if any of those connections are off, you don't hear any sound. So what I started realizing is this is signal flow. My signal of my mouth is going through the microphone, through all of this stuff and out speakers. And what I think it was is I, at a young age, started recognizing the signal flow of life. So if I started something over here, it had all these little dominoes and things that had to be right for there to be a specific outcome. So I think that thought process was just so ingrained in me. So when I wanted the outcome of $50 for the Batman toy, the signal that came into my eyes were these people are selling lemonade. Okay, how do I get into this action? And then I just, built the signal flow of life to where I made $100 in a day.
That's amazing. Well, so I don't think that at 8, you and I were similar at all, except that I probably also wanted a toy. Batman had not hit when I was 8, so because I'm older than you, but like I don't know that I would have been able to do that, but I think that speaks to your ingenuity and your intelligence, even at an 8-year-old. Okay, so let's go a little further in your story. So your dad has the music store.
Yep.
You learned all things music even as a young age, understanding signal flow. You had this entrepreneurial experience of the lemonade empire.
Yeah.
So now you're extremely successful in things other than lemonade, but you're in the music business, essentially in the recording business, et cetera. So what was the bridge from young kid lemonade empire guru to the music guy, and life coach and speaker? What was the transition?
So the transition, when I was young, I went to Los Angeles when I was 15 to do an album. I'm a singer. I've been a singer for a long time. I love music. It's saved my life. One of our companies is KMG Life Inc. And KMG stands for Keep Music Going, because we know that it saves lives, just bar none, especially through COVID. It is the single biggest thing that is helping mental health right now in young kids. Music is very important, and it absolutely saved my life. I have, I try to stay on the positive side of things, but like everybody on planet Earth, I had adversity and I had some stuff happen to me when I was younger. But when I was singing, and so when I say something like one side of the glass, if you imagine a recording studio, you usually have a recording studio where there's all of like the big mixing console and all the gear, and then on the other side of the glass you have the microphone and the artist is standing there and singing. Well, my first experience in a real recording studio when I was 15, I was singing behind a microphone, but then every time I'd hear reverb get added to my voice, or I'd hear it sound different, or it get moved in time, I would go running into the recording room and I'd go, "What are you doing? How are you doing that?" And I wanted to know why, what, when, how, all of these things. And my producer friend was always saying, "Man, you really like spending your time on this side of the glass." It's been a long time since I met an artist that wanted to spend time on both sides of the glass. And so that goes back to that signal flow side of things. But one of the things that I teach in my coaching principles is I teach the idea of languages. And this epiphany struck me when I was trying to get video work done. And I'm trying to, get my personal brand, just like everyone's trying to do. And the videographer is just giving me a bunch of crap excuses like, "Oh, well, the flux capacitor needs some more Skittles before I can get you your video." And, I took it for a while, but then I just realized I feel like this guy's snowing me over. And so I learned the language of video. I learned the language of that side of technology so that I could properly communicate with my videographer. And so what happened is I started learning the language of recording at a young age. And then I learned the language of mixing. And then I learned the language of producing. And so then I could be this dot connector when I was an artist. So I'm a singer and I'm doing all this stuff, but then I can help people understand, hey, this is the feeling I'm going for. Or, hey, if you don't want me to compress the crap out of you, I need you to back off the mic when you're doing certain things that most people can't speak in both worlds. So I could start connecting more dots. And so the idea of more and more languages started to become very appealing to me. And then on the other side, my grandfather, who is a very famous psychologist, he built the psychology department for CU Denver, and he was professor emeritus. I'm actually named after him. If you look up Gregory Adams Kimble, he was a professor at Duke for 40 years. And he was obviously pressing me to, go into academia, go do this, but I'm a musician. I need to do this. This is just what's going to happen. And I realized that early on, I was always trying to kind of coach people, help install more languages so that they could have more conversations in them. And so when I realized that I didn't necessarily want to sing all the time, now don't get me wrong, I still love singing. I did realize that there is a place where I can train people how to record themselves so an artist like myself doesn't get taken advantage of by a producer, doesn't get taken advantage of by a mixing engineer. So then they can at least speak the language so that they can get into the right studios around the right people. And then it transcended after that because we had kind of an apprenticeship program. And then we would do like kind of one-off classes. My wife and I had the idea, why don't we just build a college? And which for anyone out there listening, when you say things like that, we had no idea what we didn't know because it's way harder than we thought it was going to be. But we have a passion for training, a passion for coaching, a passion for teaching. And so my wife now runs that company is about 11 years old now. My wife runs that company. She's our CEO. I just stepped down because I got so busy with the final percent because I had people calling me up. And this is like the funny story. When you and I met with Coach Burt, I actually, had just really started getting my feet wet, but people were asking me to come help them build schools. Because they're like, everyone has a course. Everyone says, how do you build a school? You built a school. Come help us. So I'd get hired to go out there, help people build real honest to God schools that are certified by the government. But I'm installing a culture and I'm helping them with sales and I'm doing this. And they're like, Greg, you should really be a motivational speaker. And I'm like, well, you're high because I don't want to. There's no way I'm ever going to stand on stage and I'm ever going to speak. And so it just started happening. And then I started getting these calls and I started getting, people like Coach Burt. Hey, do you want to come speak at this? One of my team members saw this or however the word of mouth happens. And then the final percent just started taking off and we have a membership site and we have all these things that just exploded. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm a speaker. When did this happen? How did this happen? I didn't try to go stand on stage and speak, but it's just, I learned the language. And this is, I think, the most important thing for, I know a lot of people who listen to podcasts are budding speakers, are budding coaches, or they're trying to get into the space. And the biggest piece of advice, because Coach Burt asked me after my first event with him, he's like, I did not expect you to be that good. How did you get that good? And I said, well, I've been on stage my whole life and I'm a performer. I know how to stand on stage and perform and evoke an emotion. The thing is just instead of singing, I'm just speaking. So what I think, if people can learn the art of performance and then get the right information, because there's a lot of really smart people out there, doctors, lawyers, business professionals, and they have the best information, far better than I'll ever have, but they never learned the art of performance. They have information and then they try to go to performance and they fail. If you can learn how to do the performance and then focus your information, because everyone has a story, we've got to focus on the performance so that we can get the engagement. So,
yeah.
That's my long answer.
Well, that final piece there, the final percent of what you just said is probably that golden nugget right in there in that story, because it's about, if you've got something you want to give to the world, the way you present it has everything to do with whether or not the world will receive it. And that's exactly in sales, that's in public speaking, that's in being a pastor, a teacher, whatever you are, the way you present it is everything. So let me go back into your story a little bit and get some details.
Sure.
So you've got the KMG Academy, right? Like
Yes.
you've got that, which is your wife, Kayla, is now the CEO of that.
Yes.
You've got the Final Percent, which is your public speaking, motivate, coach thing that you're doing, which you're the sponsor of this episode. We're going to talk about the summit here in just a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
But how did the original KMG Academy, building that as a legitimate school, tell me about the first year of that? Like, how did you get started? I know you had the preparation for it, but how did it actually start?
So we started off just equipping artists with the great studio and the information on how to talk to studios and go, you know, in whatever avenue they wanted. But then people started asking me, you know, how do I do this for myself? And I was just like, sing, perform, what are you talking about? They're like, no, like, how do I record? I want to learn how to mix. I want to learn this. So we had started a apprenticeship program where people would pay us a couple $1,000, few $1,000, and then we'd try to train them. And I mean, I think that's another important thing that a lot of people don't understand is there is the same way there's an art to mixing, the same way that there is an art to videography, there's an art to speaking, there is an art to teaching. So just because you know what to do, it does not mean you know how to teach it. That was us when we started. So I had this, I said, okay, well, you know, lemonade epiphany. Hey, if there's money to be made, I'm good at what I do. I'll teach you how to do it. We're going to start an apprenticeship program. And it was unstructured and you know, kind of a wandering generality. And we're trying to figure out, because I knew how to mix, but I didn't know how to teach. And it was just so vastly different because some people need structure, some people need strategy. How do you marry those two to keep people engaged to where you can keep them on this little track moving forward on education? And so we had a lot of challenges. Some students just absolutely loved what we were up to. Some students, you know, lit us up on Facebook and Yelp and all those, like, these guys are crooks and they're just taking money. It's just, we just weren't good at teaching them. And we're trying to get better. And then probably our biggest slap in the face that happened is the state of Colorado stepped in, because I didn't know that you had to be licensed to teach a vocation. And they said, hey, we're shutting you down because you're teaching a vocation. And if you're not licensed, you're not teaching. So you can either fill out all this paperwork and go through all this stuff, costs like 16 grand a month for like almost a year, so that we can, you know, present it in a place and have all the certifications and the background checks and everything, so that we can be, quote unquote, a approved school. And so then we went through that process, which is just absolutely fascinating, and it's bureaucratic, because I think we all know and I don't care if the state of Colorado hears me say this, because I've said it on the board meetings to them multiple times, the education system is broken. And it's specifically for creative people. And this is why KMG exists. This is why we keep going. This is why it's so important, because creative people are not understood. They're borderline scary. And what we try to do in the education system is we try to control them, which is almost impossible. It's like nailing Jello to the ceiling. That's why all entrepreneurs are a creative entity. But we try to get controlled, and then we try to get consoled. So we're like, oh, little entrepreneur, don't go too far, don't go too fast, don't do this, don't do that. You're going too fast, you're believing too big, you're dreaming too big. Like, how many teachers I want to go back in my life and just slap? It's amazing. But we try to control and console creative people. What I truly believe in is we have to equip them and then let them explore. That does not fit into the traditional educational model. But very specifically, creative people need to be equipped, not with taking them in the areas where they're okay and making them good. We need to take all the areas where they're great and help them be amazing. And we need to support, equip, and let people explore. I think this is incredibly important. And this is why I think kids are kind of having these explosions after high school and the gap year and wiling out, because they're just like, I just need some me time. I need to go explore. And one of my favorite sayings is, nothing will mess up your life more than thinking you have to have your shit together in your 20s.
Yeah.
Your 20s is the decade of exploration. Go have fun. Right when you hit 30, that's not even like a hard and fast rule, but right when you hit 30, it's just start understanding what your foundation is. Start putting down those roots. Start making sure that you're at least building something now, and you're not just still in only exploration mode. But so many of these kids, I talk to 24-year-old kids all the time, 25-year-old kids all the time, 20-year-old kids all the time, who are borderline having panic attacks every day because they're so scared because they haven't made it yet. The only place we're all going is death. So we don't want to make it, because that's the only thing that's true. We want to experience it. Life is meant to be lived, and nothing that we do is going to make it to where we get out of this world alive. It's not possible. So we got to experience, have fun, and live. And so we just want to equip creatives with the right tools so that they can, not get paid in exposure. I can't tell you how many times people say, hey, Greg, I know that you're creative and you have all these lights and the sound and you can do this and you can speak. I think it'd be great exposure if you come and do all of this for me. It's like, exposure doesn't pay my bills. Now, there's certain times where that makes sense. Like Tony Robbins calls me up. Hey, I'm going to put you on stage and, unleash the power within. I think it'd be great exposure. You're right. That makes sense. But it's like, if we're at the same spot, there's no exposure. Yeah. It has to be at least a step up. And that's what I think people just take advantage of, try to control and console creatives, because creative people by their very nature are some of the most insecure people on planet Earth. And I think the people who have all the structure and strategy figured out, they try to take that and really control creative people. And it's just not fair. So I want to equip creative people, and again, very much help entrepreneurs now recognize that you are a creative person. You literally had a thought, like you with exit without exiting. You had a thought, and now you're making it into a real thing, a real framework, and you're delivering it, helping people completely turn their life around and take their lives to the next level. And that all came with one of your epiphany moments, a lemonade epiphany, and you're going, oh my God, everyone needs this. So let's go do it. And that's why you're a creative. You just created something that's going to save families and change families. That's cool.
I believe that entrepreneurs are the ones that change the world, man. We are the ones that do it. And that's why I dedicate so much time and energy to investing in entrepreneurs, not just financially, but mentally and emotionally, physically. Like, I want to invest in them just like you've done. So KMG Academy started 2010-ish. You guys started, and then the government came in and said, we're shutting you down, and you had to kind of revamp. Yeah. And then that's been going now for a decade and quite successfully. Yeah. But then you kind of got this idea of moving into speaking, or whether, somebody else gave you that idea. I don't know if you remember specifically the first person who said it to you, but you started doing speaking and coaching, and now you coach some pretty famous or influential people, and you're running the summit that you're doing in September, which you and I are going to, you're headlining, and I'm going to be one of your speakers on the slate. Absolutely. But how did you make that transition and make a decision? Okay, the academy thing is great. I've got people in place that can handle that, namely my beautiful wife. Yeah. Like, how did you decide to move into the final percent as kind of your full-time purpose and focus?
Well, I think it goes back to the language thing. I have always been someone who wants to equip people with languages so they can move through their life more aware of opportunities that are always around them. And I realized that I shouldn't just be doing it only as it pertains to music technology, advertising technology, video technology, that there's some very specific mindset stuff that really helped me. And when I would go out and I would help these people, and they would say, you should be a motivational speaker. And I'm like, there's no way. I'm not a speaker. It's not a thing. What are you talking about? And it got told to me so long, and I was so resistant to it. But I do actually remember the exact moment when I made the decision. I know the exact moment, and it's actually a mutual friend of both of ours. I won a ticket to the first 10X. diamond row or platinum row or whatever the heck he's calling it. It's always like, it's like one more each year. If you know, it's like double diamond, platinum, unobtainium. But it was whatever the highest one was for the very first year. And there's about 2,000 people there, maybe 1,500 people. I can't remember, somewhere in there. And I'm sitting in the front row, and a guy named Tim Story steps on stage. And I know that you know Tim. Tim's actually going to be joining us in Denver at the summit. He's our main headliner. But this guy comes out and he doesn't realize that he's about to change my life. Heck, I don't even realize that I'm getting my life changed. So he walks out on stage, and it was like his words just punched me into the soul and rearranged my heart. And I remember at that moment watching the way he delivered what he did. I looked over at my wife and I said, maybe I should stand on stage for something other than singing. Maybe I should stand on stage and tell my story. And I think that's what's really important for people to understand about these conferences, because people, you know, they have to pigeonhole themselves for whatever reason. But people are asking me right now, what's the summit about? Why should I come to the summit? Why should I do that? And my answer, I know it's like the least cool marketing thing to say on planet Earth, but my answer is this: I don't know. And I shouldn't tell you why you should be there, because when I went to 10X, I went there to get better networking skills, better business skills, better strategies, and take my business and the infrastructure to the next level. What ended up happening is I made the decision that I should be a speaker. So we have no idea what's going to happen when you're at the right place at the right time. And that's why I mean, we have a big, like, we're actually building out a whole website about this, saying you are one conversation away. So, I mean, check this out. The whole reason I ended up on Coach Bert's tour thing, and it started off on a cruise that he was doing, was because you want to talk about, he's big on Activate the Prey drive. And I text him all the time. I'm like, dude, I hunted you down. I hunted you down. I found out he was going to be in Vail, which is about 2.5 hours away from me. And I smashed his DMs. I smashed Eric White's DMs. And I said, get me a meeting, get me a meeting, get me a meeting. And they're like, he doesn't have time. He's doing this. He's flying out. Okay, cool. That's great. Get me a meeting. Get me a meeting. No, he doesn't have time. He's speaking up there. Then he's taking a car down. I was like, okay, that's fine. When should I be there to just grab a cup of coffee? When should I be there to just have lunch? When should I be there to have the conversation? So they finally agreed to it. I drive 2.5 hours, not knowing what in the heck is going to come of this. Up there, we end up having about an 1.5-hour meeting. And in very Coach Bert fashion, he doesn't wear his emotion on his sleeve, especially when you're in a meeting with him. He says, okay, we'll be in touch. And you, I don't know if you've caught this, but I just love the way he says it. But he always says tomorrow. And so he goes, Eric White's going to get with you tomorrow. And I remember that clear as day. And I just thought, I blew it. Eric's not calling me. Now they just know me even more. This crazy guy who drove 2.5 hours each way to have an hour-long meeting to just introduce himself. But I'm a creature of action. And sure enough, Eric calls me and he says, would you like to speak on the cruise with Coach Bert? Coach Bert was very impressed with you, and we'd like to give you a shot. And it was such a surreal thing, because it's moments like that. If you show up, if you take action, and more importantly, if you have the conversation, it changes your life. So I showed up because even though I won that ticket, I still had to fly there, take the time off, buy the hotel, and then buy my wife a ticket. Because, you know, in very Grant fashion, he gave me one ticket, did not give me a plus one.
He wants you to bring people with you.
Exactly right. And so when I went there, changed my life. You know, when I had a conversation, and, you know, I'll just use this as the last illustration of your one conversation away from changing your entire life, is when I started KMG, I had just maybe one of the world's worst business partners. He gave me about $100,000. And at the time, that might as well have been $1 billion. I mean, you got to remember, I come from a family where $50 for a toy is utterly insane. And so this might as well be $1 billion to me. And it's about 10 years ago. We're starting the idea of, I want to make this school. Let's do this school. And my business partner at the time, who owned 7% of the company with the $100,000 investment, he just wanted to extract as much money out of the students as possible, which, again, I'm very protective of the people I teach. And I don't get me wrong, I like doing good business. I like getting paid for what I do, but I want it to be fair. I do not want to just extract as much money as I can. So if it's $1,000 for this person, but this is a rich family, so somehow it's $10,000 for you, that's bad business. Right? I'm never going to allow that. And so he's trying to do stuff like that. And so we get into this giant fight, and I start freaking out. I'm stuck with this guy. Like, I'm in a marriage that I can't divorce the guy, because if I divorce him, it costs me $100,000. I don't have $100,000. Everything's in the business. I'm going down. It's never going to happen. Oh my God, the sky is falling. Humpty Dumpty. No one's putting this back together. I'm freaking out. And so I go and I hang out with the bass player of my uncle's band, who's a Grammy award-winning band, Blind Dog Smokin'. It's a blues band, great band. And this guy's 5 years older than me. He's been in my life since I was little. And he's sitting there and he's having coffee with me at, I think it was in Boulder. And we're going back and forth. I'm going, dude, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm done. But I have no idea what's about to happen, but I'm having the conversation. And he looks at me and he says, why don't I just buy him out? I'm not kidding. This next part is exactly what I said. I said, you're a bass player. I said $100,000. I'm talking about real money. And he looks at me and he goes, wait, hold on. You don't know? And I went, no, what? Like you're a bass player? Like, no, like I've heard you. It's what are you talking about? Pulls open his phone to a live feed of his racing team in, the Nürburgring, and his cars of like McLaren and all of this stuff in California. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, these are all my cars. Like, there's a reason I like cars so much. I go, are you Tony Stark? Or like, how is this possible? What is going on? And he said, I don't tell a lot of people, and I thought you knew because you've been a family friend, but my last name is Pritzker. And I go, cool. Like a P, a T, a Z, like, does that mean you're Jewish? Like, what does that mean? I like you put those letters together. Like, I get it. Like, what are you? I don't care about that. And he's like, my family started Hyatt. I come from a $30 billion family, and I've watched you turn nothing into something my entire life. And I always thought, when I got my inheritance, which I got a couple years ago, what if this kid started with something? What does he turn that into? And he goes, it would be my honor to be a business partner with you. All because I had a conversation at coffee, and I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea that was a thing that was coming. And now he's my business partner and everything. And that's why, I feel incredibly lucky. But that conversation changed my life. That conversation, with Tim, and Tim didn't know he was having the conversation. That changed my life. The conversation with the guy who ended up being my best man at my wedding, that introduced me to my wife, changed my life. Conversations are everything, and you have to be at the right place at the right time to have those conversations. Now, am I saying every conversation is created equal? No. But I think it's important to realize we were all created equal to become unequal. We all have that same opportunity to have a drive, have a conversation, and take action. And it's time that we get more comfortable with the conversation. Hey, here's what's going on. Instead of the posturing, check out my this, check out my that, look at this. Like, no, just what's actually going on. If it's good, awesome. If it's bad, awesome. How can I help? Let's have more conversations like that. So conversations are everything.
Man, well, I think that everybody listening can definitely hear the passion and hear the excitement and the drive in why you do what you do. And I think that, for those that, for the regular listeners to the show, they know that I talk about the 5 keys to success for every entrepreneur who has made it, like you have made it. You're successful. You're not exactly where at the finish line of where you want to be. There's more to go, but you're super successful. And I've listened to your story and I've identified some of these things. And I want you to tell me if I'm right. So passion is the very first and most important key to success for entrepreneurs. And most people, when I say that, think that I mean, Greg, they think that I'm talking about the excitement that you've got in your voice. And while that is part of passion, that's the emotional side of passion. The real key to entrepreneurial success is the mental side of passion. And the word passion actually means willing to endure. That's where we get the concept of the passion of the Christ from. It wasn't that he was excited to go to the cross. It was that he was willing to do it for a bigger cause. Yeah. And I see in your story and hear from you today on the show, your willingness to endure, to move through the licensing procedures with the state of Colorado, to push through the hard times of getting your Final Percent business up and running. That passion is there. You see it too, right? The second key to success is being at the right place at the right time. And you had several of those in your life. You had your dad having the music shop in Laramie, Wyoming.
Yeah.
That was a right place. You riding your bike down the street that day as an 8-year-old to sing that lemonade stand, right place, right time. You being at 10X when Tim Story spoke, right place, right time. You driving to Vail to meet with Coach Burt and his team, right place, right time. And the coffee with the bassist.
Yeah,
man, all of this comes together. Isn't that great? Have you ever thought that those places made you who you are?
Well, and I think that's one of the things I think is important for people to realize is you're only at the right place at the right time if you're aware enough and if you're willing to take action. And I was just lucky enough to be crazy enough to take the shot in the dark, have the conversation, take the action, believe. And I call it the awareness quotient. I think like everyone talks about IQ, it doesn't really matter. EQ, second most important thing in today's, or first most important in today's world, but still even that, it doesn't matter as much. I talk more about the WQ and the AQ. WQ is the ability to assess your present, analyze your past so you can accurately predict the future, so you don't get caught into those habit loops. And then I call the most important is the AQ, awareness quotient. You get more awareness when you're more confident. You get more awareness when you're exposed to new ideas, new people. You get more awareness when you have that book. I mean, a lot of people use the car thing. When you buy the new car, you suddenly see them everywhere on the road. But the same is true with books. If you read a book and you hear an idea, you're going to have more conversations and it leads to more things. So you're going to be at the right place at the right time more often, not because you're in different places, but you're just more aware. And then with the passion piece, I think is important for people to understand. This is where like my coaching clients just hate me because they come in, I'm just trying to find my passion. No, you bring your passion into whatever you do. Passion is not what you do, it's who you are. If I'm sweeping, if I'm mopping, if I'm cleaning, I'm going to do it with passion. I am a creature of passion. If I'm going to love my wife, I'm going to change my kid's diaper. I'm going to do it at the best possible way that I can. I'm going to bring passion to everything because at the end of the day, we only have right now. And because of that, even if I'm taking out the trash, I never want to wish I was somewhere else. I really think that we have competency moments and we have character moments. Competency moments are I'm challenged intellectually. Right now, you and I are having a competency moment because we can go back and forth. We can talk about ideas. We can talk about dreams. A character moment is, did you take out the trash? Did you do the dishes? Did you wash your hands when no one else was in the bathroom? Who are you when no one is looking? The character moments are so important in our life, but we want to avoid them because, we don't feel like it challenges me, or I need to be inspired. Well, here's a newsflash. You're never going to be inspired to take out the trash unless there's too much trash. Then it's too late. So just do it when it needs to be done. That's why I love Zig Ziglar. He said, do what you have to do as soon as you can, so you can do what you want to do for as long as you can.
That's right. That's
so
good.
It's important. So, but that's a big thing. You got to bring your passion to everything you do. Passion is who you are, not what you do.
That's right. And so the first key that I talk about to success is passion, which you've accurately described. Second is being in the right place at the right time, which we talked about. You had so many places that you were at that was right, and you worked yourself into those places. The third is knowing the right people, knowing the right people and the connections that you made with your current business partner. Even your former and first business partner was the right person, because without him, you wouldn't have been where you are today. Negative example, but yet nevertheless a real deal. And I've got a similar story to you. We could share it later, but knowing the right people, that is one of the keys to success. And you have to put yourself in those places, because you didn't know that bassist was who he was.
No idea.
You just put yourself in that place and watch where it went, and were aware. To your point, you had the awareness to know, well, holy crap, this is a moment that changes my life if I pay attention to it. And then the fourth key is preparation. And if you're noticing, and the listeners will know because they listen a lot, is passion, place, people. The fourth is preparation. They're all in P's, because I was a former pastor. I got to alliterate everything.
There you go.
The preparation is, how did you prepare? What's the know-how to be successful? And I think it goes back for you, is that your dad having that store and you being forced maybe to do the work and to install things and to pay attention to both sides of the glass, pay attention to the signal loop and how it flows, that prepared you for success.
Absolutely.
And then the fifth P, and then I will talk about the summit, because I want to talk about that before we end up. The fifth P is plan. Like, what's your plan to make this thing work? So when you started your KMG Academy, I love what you said. You said, hey, I just wanted to teach people as apprentices how to do this, because I feel like there's a better way to do it with more integrity. And so your plan to do that was, you had a good plan to move forward, but you needed financial resources to make it happen. And that's where your business partner came in, right?
Exactly.
So the passion, place, people, preparation, plan, as normal, is 100% evident in your story, Greg, of success. And I love it. So let's now talk about the big thing, right? The big elephant in the room. You have organized this big summit with the final percent in Denver, September 25th and 26th coming up. You're going to be headlining. I'm going to be one of the speakers on stage. Tim Story is going to be on stage. We've mentioned him.
Sharon Lecter.
Sharon Lecter is going to be on stage. Coach Burt, which we mentioned him a few times, Coach Burt, and so many other amazing people. Let's talk about that, because in your podcast we're going to also do, it's kind of two parts of this thing. We're going to talk about on this both sides. Tell everybody about this summit. And I know you said you don't want to answer the question why you should be there, but why are you, Greg, putting this on?
I think especially why we're having so many speakers. Number one, I don't like spending good money on a ticket. I call it the life investment. What's my life investment here? Everyone talks about the investment in dollars, but everyone's going to put in time, energy. You're going to sacrifice time with your family. And when you're putting in such a big life investment, yes, I am too, coupled with the monetary investment, and then all of the people who are coming, I don't like going straight into a pitch fest where I feel like everything's leading to me getting closed on something. Now, if you do so good on stage and there's a way to connect and then people want to buy from you, I'm all about creating that exchange. But the only mission to generate enough dollars, I think, is a travesty. And I wanted to create basically the conference that I always wished I would have gone to every time I bought a ticket. And so this is, you might come for one reason and leave with another, like what happened with me, but I'm bringing together people that I truly think are a catalyst of change. And I know that I am not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. But I know that someone on the stage can and will change your life. I know this, but I don't think one person has all of the answers, and we need to have opposing ideas. We need to have, different vehicles to get to the same direction. Some people are scared to death of planes, and if I'm preaching planes, they really need to talk to the person who has the train ticket, and that's okay. And so giving people a platform and a launch pad like yourself, who has such great ideas that I think need to be heard. They need to get out there, and more people need access to great people, because like Jim Collins says, great people go great places. And, that's in your list of the P's, people and places, kind of important. And so I want to create more of that launch pad for people like yourself to get in front of the people, because there's a lot of great things that you do that I literally am terrible at. And I would love my network to be able to experience who you are, how you can show up, what you can do. And I want people to understand that whether you're, exchanging ideas with a Jason Duncan or a Tim Story, there's something for everyone. And that's the thing that I think is important, is the pontificating guru is dying. It's not what it used to be. And then you get the cancel culture who's trying to say, oh, you have a Jesus complex and all of these things. It's just, they're doing it the way they taught or they were taught, and what starts working for them. But I just realized, what if I put a bunch of people on stage where you can say, it's like a buffet. I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And maybe it's just ideas, maybe it's products, maybe it's conversations. I don't know what it is, but I know that I'm excited to go to this conference because I want to go to this conference, not just because I'm putting it on. I'm going to the conference because it's the conference that I always wished I would have gone to. And so much so because music has changed my life. On the Saturday, it's going to be all day the conference. And then at the evening, we are actually going to do a full conference or a concert, because my team and I have done an entire album of inspiration and motivation so that people can stay in the mindset when they're jogging, when they're working out, when they're doing anything. But I realized, because, I had gone to church so much, the power of music and message. And I thought to myself, why is this exclusively religion? Because I am a singer and because I love music and my wife sings and a bunch of my coaches in the Final Percent sing, what if we created an event that was like, our color is purple, so I call it the purple explosion, because we're going to have lights, camera, action. We have a technical college here. So we're going to have a bunch of the kids who are going to get the experience to be a part of a very unique creative concert and conference. There's going to be like Coach Bird always talks about, the structure of exchange, so that we can exchange energy, ideas, money, do business, see what's possible. But we're going to do it in a way that is unbelievably entertaining, that it's going to have things that people have never seen before, all because I think that people deserve better when they go to the conferences. But there's that word again. If you think about the addiction to better, I want to get better. I want to be a better man. Most people are actually not trying to get better. And that's when I really made the epiphany. People are looking for different, not better.
Amen.
And that's what we want to be. I want to be a seminar that is not better than Tony Robbins, because if I go toe to toe with Tony Robbins, he squishes me like an ant. But I can be different. I can be way different to where people need both. And then it goes all the way into the conference, because I am a different speaker than Jason. I am not better. I am different. People need different. We're not in a speaking competition. We are in our own lane, and I'm going to support you just like you've supported me. And when people are sitting in the audience, they're going to experience different perspectives. They're going to experience different vehicles. They're going to experience different experiences. And I think that's really important to help people take themselves to the next level, to understand you don't have to be a crazy extrovert like me. You can be like, you're like the cool, collected person who's like, I'm more of the like frontline gunner. You're like the sniper in the trees. You're just like, bap, 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 got him done. I'm going to go sit, and I'm out there, rah, the troops. We need both perspectives. We need the different perspectives. It's important. And then putting all those people on the same stage that are focused on one thing. They are a catalyst of change. And that's why I was so excited to get you on the stage, because people aren't looking to get better. They're not looking to just go hang out with people. They are looking for change. Something in their life needs to change. We need to find that thing in their life that needs to change and give them the power to do so, because it's usually one decision away, one, coaching session away, one experience away. And if we can get enough catalysts of change on a stage, well, guess what? Things change, people change, and they are never going to be the same again. And that's what we're going for.
So thefinalpercent.com, and they scroll down to upcoming events. They can see the entire lineup, everybody that's going to be speaking. It's going to be September the 25th and 26th. It's a Saturday and Sunday in Denver. You need to go check this out. And like I said at the top of the show, as the Final Percent is one of our sponsors is the sponsor for this episode. Greg's the headliner. I'm one of the keynotes. We've talked about Tim Story, Sharon Lecter, Coach Burt are all going to be there. People that you want to listen to because they can help change your life, just like Tim changed Greg's life. There are similar stories that are going to happen at his conference, the Final Percent Conference, the summit, because you're present. So go to the realjasonduncan.com and look, and go just fill out the contact form, and I'll get you a discount code for the tickets. If you want to buy straight from Greg, of course, you can go straight to thefinalpercent.com, scroll down to the summit page, click on it. You can buy tickets. There's 3 levels of tickets that you can get, but you really definitely need to be there. Greg, before we close out the show, any final parting words of advice for that entrepreneur that's sitting there right now who hasn't yet taken the step to start or do what he or she wants to do? What would you say to that person right now?
I would say the real currency of life is respect. And, that's why Jason and I are on this thing, is we have a mutual respect. And the only reason you're not taking action right now is because you don't respect yourself enough. And I think that if you look at yourself, when's the last time, if it was up to you, you actually failed? You're going to start realizing that you succeed way more than you fail. When you're thrown into the deep end and your only choice is success, you always succeed. And I think the listener needs to know that right when they flex their respect muscle for themselves and they take a chance on that thing that is burning inside of them, what I call it in our coaching is the exponential. To live an exponential life. Your exponential is like you're Clark Kent with the glasses on, and you've been that way all your life, and you have just never taken them off and realized you were Superman. And it's time to take off the glasses. It's time to take flight, and it's time to respect yourself enough to thank yourself in 10 years for starting today. Respect yourself enough to take the chance on you and flex your exponential, that little superpower you've got inside of you that you have never wanted to tell anybody about, that dream you've never wanted to show people. And check this out. The number one thing, if you look at these 5 P's that Jason has, people are kind of at the core of everything. So if you don't know how to do the thing that you're about to do, get a mentor. It's the single biggest thing that changed my life. I have a mentor today. I will have a mentor forever. And having those people that is like your Professor X that helps you understand your mutant abilities so that you can go be the superhero you were meant to be. Go find your Professor X, get some coaching at a very minimum. If coaching's expensive, get into some good Facebook groups, listen to podcasts, go to Automobile University, but respect yourself enough to actually be you, not someone else's version of you. And this even goes for your parents or your wife. If they're like, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, you're not good enough to do that, why are you even starting? No, you need to have enough respect for you to take a chance on you and actually be you.
Such power, such amazing passion in his words. So please go check out Greg Kimble. Go to thefinalpercent.com. Please come to the conference. You're going to meet somebody that will help change your life. And if you're listening to this on any of the podcast players, you're missing the visuals of what Greg is saying. You see it in his face. And I'm actually going to, for the YouTube watchers at youtube.com/C/the Real Jason Duncan, where this podcast is going to be put out there for visuals, I'm changing my background color to the purple explosion. Hey! I got 2 purple Sharpies. Listen, man, I'm all in. I can't wait for the conference. And I hope that you, listener, will be there too, because you'll get to meet Greg. Greg is not too good to talk to you. Like, there's a lot of conferences you'll go, you'll never talk to the organizer. Greg will be there. You can shake his hand. You can talk to him and his lovely wife, and you can meet all the fantastic speakers. Make sure you go to thefinalpercent.com. Now, I want to say this as we close out the show, like I do every single time we have a show, is that I am a business coach. Just like Greg is a coach, I'm a coach. And part of what I believe is that entrepreneurs change the world. Mm-hmm. And so I run coaching cohorts. I do one-on-one coaching. I do speaking, like I'm going to be doing at the Final Percent Summit. But one of the things I do to give back every single week, part of my weekly cadence, is I do one free coaching session for an entrepreneur somewhere in the world. And it doesn't matter if you're brand new, haven't started, or you're a multi-billionaire and you just have one issue you want to work through. Now, if you're a multi-billionaire, I will probably lean on you to pay me a little bit. But the reality is, I do one free session a week for one entrepreneur somewhere in the world to work through one issue. It's one issue. So go to therealjasonduncan.com/free coaching. All you got to do is put your name, email address, and the issue you want. My team takes a look at that. We choose one person every week. And on a Tuesday, every single week, I get on Zoom and I do one free session. So if you want that, go to therealjasonduncan.com/free coaching. So as I said at the top, this is sponsored by the Final Percent Summit. Please go to thefinalpercent.com, check out the summit page. And if you want discount tickets, you can reach out to me through my website, and I'll give you a discount. Thanks for being here on the show, The Root of All Success. We talked to Greg. Greg, thank you so much for being here. This has been phenomenal. I loved it. I loved your energy, love your passion. And please go look at the Final Percent podcast to get the second part of this 2-part podcast story so that we can go on both sides of this thing, where Greg talks to me about my story. I'll see you next time on The Root of All Success. And until then, remember, Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the Real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.